Hello and welcome to Voice It. This is a platform where we have meaningful conversations with the aim of empowering you to be active citizens. Now, I know I've been missing in action for quite some time. I think for the last 6 weeks or so, and I definitely missed you guys as much as you missed me. Anyway, I'm back, and as always, I'm hoping to provide you with quite informative and interacting videos, and maybe just to kick this off, I know we are celebrating the International Day of the Girl Child, which is always commemorated annually on the 11th of October, and October actually happens to be my birthday month, so yes. And so as a gender equality advocate, I'm just happy that Kenya as a country, we have made so much effort in just championing gender equality. And so as the world commemorates the International Day of the Girl Child, I want to say, like, and this is something I actually said to CS Professor Margaret Kobia during the 12th Commonwealth Women Affairs Ministers meeting, which was being held in Nairobi about 2 weeks ago, and this was the second time that meeting is being held. In short, it's called WAM, the 12th WAM, and Kenya hosted the first one in 1985. So this was coming back home 35, or is that 35 or 34? 34 years later. And so some of the themes that were being discussed during that forum is actually gender equality, gender mainstreaming, and sexual health and reproductive rights. Those were some of the key themes that were being discussed. And I remember I mentioned it actually that in 2019, as a young woman in Kenya, I feel privileged to see the efforts, or rather the progress that the country has really made in just championing, especially the rights and opportunities for us, especially as women. And so those are some of the things I really want to highlight in this video as this part of commemorating the International Day of the Girl Child. And the theme for this year actually is empowering girls for a brighter tomorrow. And I know some of you guys keep saying that there's so much conversation, there's so much efforts that are just geared on the girl child at the expense of boy child. And I can tell you that for me, gender equality is not a girl versus boy or women versus men agenda. No, gender equality is all about advocating and championing for equal opportunities and equal representation. And so one of the reasons why you will feel like there's more focus on the girls than we have on the boys, it's because of the historical injustices that created that gap, that left girls more marginalized. And if I can take this a little back to our Kenyan background, you know pretty well that ours is a very patriarchal society, where growing up in the, where people like, especially the people who grew up in the village setup, the rural, the people who grew up in the rural setup, you will find, especially in the communities that had high poverty rates, you will find if there's a boy here and there's a girl, privilege will be given to send the boy child to school, because the perception will be the girl will get married and the girl will stay home and do house chores and what have you, okay? Or the girl will get married to a rich man, so let's educate the boy to bring the wealth back home. And so some of these issues and even harmful cultural practices like the FGM and early marriages, they made girls lose out on education. If you look at communities that practice FGM and the pastoralist, thank you, communities that that even engage in early marriages for girls, you will find that girls were left out so much, because we had young girls who were married off to men, and so they lost out on that. And so that is why there's so much focus to ensure that we bridge that gap. Okay, if you look at the corporate scene, you will see that there are few female representations especially in certain industries, in the managerial positions. okay? And so these are some of the gaps that the focus on girls is just aimed at scaling up or narrowing. And also we are trying to encourage more girls to get into STEM-oriented careers. That is on sciences, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Because for a long time, these are careers that are largely been dominated by men. And what usually happens, girls have been for a long time been taught to settle for the safer careers. Secretarial roles, I don't know what other, because they are safer. And what happens is that these jobs don't even pay much. And so that again extends or makes the gender wage gap again more wider. So as I mentioned as I started this video, I want to talk about some of the key milestones, or rather Kenya's scorecard. And disclaimer by the way, I'm not here to speak or put a brief for the government. These are my views as a woman, as a gender champion in Kenya. I'm just celebrating the progress that our country, my country, has made to champion gender and equality. Gender equality is actually a constitutional right, and I'm happy that President Uhuru Kenyatta has reaffirmed his government's commitment to champion gender and equality, which he says is actually key in his government's development agenda. And so I'm going to go through a list of 5 areas where Kenya has made progress and is making progress on women empowerment. And the first area is on women economic empowerment. And the government has made several efforts actually to just profile women a bit when it comes to the economic empowerment. And if I may read, among these are initiatives geared to empower women economically. And this includes access to finance, which remains a major challenge. And we have funds like the Uwezo Fund, and also we have funds for people with disabilities and the youth as well. And we also have the AGPO, which is the access to government procurement opportunities, which is an affirmative action fund which allows enterprise owned by women, youth, and people with disabilities to be able to bid for government tenders. I know there are still gaps on these projects, but the important thing is that these are funds that are there, and women and the youth and people with disabilities are benefiting from them. So the challenges and the loopholes, I'm sure those are things that can be fixed as we carry on, but yes, that is one of the efforts. And so the second category where the government has made efforts, or rather, let me not use the word government, the second category where Kenya has made efforts actually to empower women is on gender and development, ending discrimination. And as Professor Margaret Kobia, who is the Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Public Service, Youth and Gender, and she said during the Commonwealth meetings, which she was sharing, the country has developed critical policies and legislations to promote and enforce and monitor non-discrimination. And so this includes the review of the National Policy of Gender and Development and the National Policy for the Eradication of FGM. As I mentioned earlier, FGM is one of the harmful cultural practices that have really made the girl child really lag behind, and it also causes death, okay? And so this is one of the areas where the government has really, sorry, as I said, I do not want to use the word government because I'm not doing PR for government. So this is one of the areas in which Kenya has really made efforts. And the other sector is on empowering girls in education. This has to be one of my favorites because we know girls have been left behind a lot when it comes to education. And this is because we have situations that really put us at a disadvantage. And one of these things is actually the period shame, okay? And so you find girls miss out on at least 2 or 3 days, actually not even 2, 3 or 4 days in a month due to periods, either because they don't have access to sanitary towels or because of crampings, and these are things that come with this. I think there was the government's plan to have free sanitary towels to all school-going children, all the girls in both primary and public schools. And this is one of the areas I have a ball to pick, actually, but that should be a story for another day, because we have this provision which is awesome, brilliant, okay? But the girls are not getting these sanitary towels as they should. In some areas, they don't get there, and yet the government has issued money and tenders for such products. In some schools, allegedly, the teachers sell them. And so I hope this is something that the relevant ministries, I know there is a war between the Ministry of Gender and the Ministry of Education, where the free sanitary pads falls. The free sanitary pads project is under the Ministry of Gender and Youth. And the Ministry of Education wants it to be there because they say that's how they're able to manage it. But regardless of which ministry is managing this, we really need that house to be put in order, and we need to see our girls getting these sanitary towels. And so the other efforts that have been put in empowering girls in education, you know, like right now in the country we have free primary school and also free secondary day school. And so this is something that has really, really empowered girls on this front. And the government has also introduced a program to ensure 100% transition from primary to secondary school, which has seen over 90% of all students proceed from primary to secondary education through full government sponsorship. So this is good because a family doesn't have to make the decisions between sending John here to school or Mary, because the opportunity is there for both genders to just go out there and get education. And the other category, which is the fourth one, is on sexual and reproductive health rights. And the reason why this is important is because we need to ensure first girls are empowered on their sexual health and reproductive rights. And this includes girls and women, and this includes access to contraceptives, HIV, reproductive health services, friendly reproductive health services. Because as you know now, based on data available from the Kenya Bureau of Statistics, young people right now account for the highest number of new HIV infections. And so this is a category of a population that really needs to be handled with care. They need to get access to places where they can get youth-friendly HIV testing and prevention services. And some of these things, as controversial as it sounds, include contraceptives as well. Because as you all know, and I love that we are having these conversations when the country is about to undergo the national exams, both the KCSE and the KCPE, and that is the time that we see high number of girls dropping out of exams rooms or missing out on their exams because they were pregnant. And so I think this is an important conversation that people really need to start having, okay? And so, yes, that's one of the areas where Kenya has really made a lot of progress. And actually, when we are talking about access to contraceptives, it's not just targeting teenagers, even mature women, because we need to have, we need to encourage families to have controlled births, so that the country is able to reap from the demographic dividend, which is the economic benefit, the economic gain a country starts to benefit from when a high number of its citizens are contributing more to the economy than they are dependent on it. And so it's really, really important to have this. And I think the last one is on gender violence. And gender violence, as I said earlier, is not something that is just limited to women. We also have men who are going through gender violence as well. And so Kenya has progressive laws and policies to tackle gender-based violence. And this includes the Protection Against Domestic Violence Act 2015, Sexual Offenses Medical Treatment Regulations 2012, and the Sexual Offenses Rules of Court 2014. And so what this means is that we have policies, we have legislation in place where victims of gender-based violence are able to get justice and to get help. The government, in partnership with non-state actors, is also currently implementing a joint program on preventing and responding to gender-based violence, and working with the judiciary on strengthening access to justice for victims of gender-based violence. Access to justice remains elusive, and mostly because most victims do not fear reporting, because you'll find that their violators, their perpetrators are walking scot-free. But if the judiciary is strong, it means then this is an area that will really be addressed. And I love that this year's theme for the Law Society of Kenya on their Legal Awareness Week is eradicating gender-based violence, a focus on mental health. And I love that the judiciary is coming strong on the gender violence issue. And so, as I conclude, Kenya has highly been lauded, not just by me, because it may seem biased because I'm talking about my country, but generally Kenya has been lauded in its efforts in championing gender equality and women's empowerment. So in a nutshell, those are some of the progress or the Kenya's scorecard as far as championing gender and equality goes. And I'm just happy as a person, as a woman growing up and as a gender advocate. And guys, I would like to hear your views. What do you feel about the issue of gender equality in the country? What is that one area that you feel has been neglected, or what do you feel the government can do more to enhance gender equality? So please comment. Let's have this conversation in the comment sections below, and also in your circles, in your WhatsApp groups, with your friends and family. Have that conversation because it's important. And so thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. It matters. And also please subscribe and be part of the Voice Squad. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.